Medicinal uses of microorganisms. Have you ever wondered what medicinal world would be without microorganisms? Would our lives be the same? Will our lives be possible, impossible, or miserable? What about antibiotics and vaccines? Would we still need them? It is pretty interesting to learn about these because they include two eventful stories of two good doctors which all of you would enjoy. So, let us move on to the first story and see what antibiotics are. Sir Alexander Fleming was an eminent doctor and a good scientist, specifically bacteriologist, when he accidentally discovered the world's first ever antibiotic on 14th February 1929. A special day indeed, right? Now, you will be wondering why I quoted the word accidentally. It was indeed an accidental discovery. In fact, Dr. Fleming was working on a culture of a disease-causing bacteria called Staphylococci, which he left uncovered in his lab. And then he found that spores of little green mold had begun to grow on one of his culture plates, which killed the bacteria and spoiled his experiment. But he never felt bad and he never gave up. He thought the other way around. What if this mold have the ability to destroy the deadly dangerous bacteria? He worked on it, isolated it, and started experimenting further. To his surprise, he found that even some of the most dangerous germs died near the mold. Dr. Fleming published his results calling this mold as penicillin. After much research and experimentation, scientists were able to initiate mass production of the life-saving drug penicillin, the first ever antibiotic. Just imagine if you were born a century ago before this wonderful discovery, you could even die from a small scratch anywhere on your body if it got infected. Do you know most soldiers died of infected wounds during World War I? Mass-produced form of penicillin was ready by 1942. That was just in time to help the soldiers wounded in World War II. Less than 1% of soldiers died of bacterial infection in World War II. Let us thank Sir Fleming for making our lives better. If you were attentive enough to the story, by now you will be able to explain what antibiotics really are. It is time for us to define it. Antibiotics are substances produced or derived from a microorganism, basically bacteria or fungi, that destroys or inhibits the growth of other microorganisms. Antibiotics are used to treat infections or diseases caused by organisms that are sensitive to them, usually bacteria or fungi. However, they are not effective against viral diseases such as common cold and flu. Let us make it a bit more clear by adding our daily life examples. What does a doctor advise you when you go with an infection, swelling wounds, deep cuts, or after a dental extraction? He gives you some antibiotic tablets, capsules, or injections of specified dosages and reminds you to complete the course prescribed, right? Have you ever thought why? When you stop taking the medicine, even before the prescribed time, the bacteria have the potential to grow again at a rapid speed. They may multiply, aggravating the symptoms all over again. If you take antibiotics when not needed or in wrong dosages, it may make drug less effective in future as the bacteria may develop resistance against the drug. Also, antibiotics taken unnecessarily may kill the beneficial bacteria in our body. So, make sure you consult a doctor before taking any antibiotic and do as he says. Never try self-medication. It is dangerous. Some commonly known antibiotics are streptomycin, tetracycline, cephalosporin, and erythromycin. Now, let me ask you another question. Do you think antibiotics are used only by humans? What about plants and animals? Yes, the plants and animals are also given antibiotics. Most of the above mentioned antibiotics are mixed with the feed of livestock and poultry to control microbial infection in animals. Antibiotics are essential in controlling plant diseases too. Streptomycin is used in many countries to provide resistance to diseases like fire blight of pear and bacterial spot of peach. Hope you are clear about antibiotics as a wonder drug for humans, animals, as well as plants. Now, let us listen to the second interesting story. Dr. Jenner was an expert on cuckoos. He was also a good scientist because he asked the right questions. During his time, smallpox was a major global endemic disease. Only in Europe, it killed around 400,000 people per year, without discriminating rich and poor. Even 5 kings were killed. But for some reason, milkmaids never seemed to catch the deadly smallpox. In fact, they were renowned for their beauty, as their skin was free of the scar smallpox caused. But why? That was something that interested Dr. Edward Jenner. He knew that milkmaids sometimes got small blisters on their hands when they milked cows suffering from cowpox. Cowpox didn't do the milkmaids much harm. Jenner then thought, are smallpox and cowpox related? Could catching cowpox stop them catching smallpox? As a man of science, he decided to prove it. For this, he needed 3 things: cowpox that he extracted from a milkmaid, smallpox from a patient, and a person who had never caught both the diseases. He chose an 8-year-old boy, James Phibbs, for this. First, he infected the child with cowpox. James fell ill, but he soon recovered. 6 weeks later, Dr. Jenner deliberately infected James with the deadly disease. But James didn't get smallpox. He lived to a ripe old age, and now smallpox is being wiped out from the world. So, how was the story? Don't you think Dr. Jenner's discovery was amazing? It was a time when almost 60% of the population in England was infected by the smallpox virus, and about 20% population died from it. It was his remarkable power of observation and the risk he took to prove his experiments that saved millions of lives. Edward Jenner is known to be a doctor who saved the most lives in the history of mankind. He discovered the first ever successful vaccine in the year 1798, which then initiated the discovery of all the other vaccines we use today. So, let us now examine what vaccines really are and how do they protect us from all the grave diseases. Vaccine is a familiar term to all of us, right? It indeed is an inevitable part of our childhood memories. Don't you remember the ink mark they put on your thumb after you were given the oral polio vaccine? And you came back saying, I voted for the first time. And have you seen that round scar on your upper left arm? Or maybe on the right? Have you ever thought of reasons for it? To explain all these, first we shall try to define vaccine. As you observed in Jenner's story, vaccine is derived from the term vaccinia, which meant cowpox, because the first ever vaccine was derived from cowpox. Now, we could correlate these terms easily. Cowpox is a much weakened or milder form of the disease smallpox. Both the diseases are caused by microorganisms, that is, viruses. So, a vaccine is a dead or weakened form of a microbe which, when introduced into our body, safeguards us against the particular microbial disease. But how is our body stimulated to gain protection against the disease? Just by the introduction of a weakened microbe in our body? To answer this question, we should understand how a vaccine works. And I have a simple but colorful activity to explain this. Before proceeding to the activity, let us try and understand some basic terms related to the action of a vaccine. Have you ever heard of the term antibody? Don't confuse it with our antibiotics. Antibodies are nothing but the substances that are produced inside our body in response to the introduction of a vaccine. So, what do they actually do? In fact, they bind to a specific foreign particle, also called antigen, and blocks it from attacking the body. The foreign particle here is the weakened microbe itself. And the best part is, antibodies remain inside our body even after the antigen is destroyed and retains the memory, so that when the real disease comes, they are ready to block it. Let us see the activity to understand how vaccines work. We will consider this black colored sheet to be our body. Now, we are introducing a vaccine into our body. Consider this orange colored hexagon as the vaccine. This is nothing but the foreign particle or the weakened microbe about which we talked earlier. So, what happens next? How does our body respond? Yes, our body prepares antibodies to block the invader. Let us cut out these white sheets to make our antibodies. There is a simple rule we need to take care while doing so. That is, our antibodies must block the invader from all the sides. Let us try out making some antibodies. For instance, let us take our antibodies to be triangular shaped. You can prepare antibodies with any shape of your choice provided you follow the rule strictly. That is, block your invader from all the sides. Don't let it move and cause harm to your body. Here, our antibodies are ready, and see how they block the vaccine perfectly. Now, there comes the disease-causing microbe, much more dangerous invader, red in color. And just look at it. Its shape exactly resembles the vaccine. This gives us an added advantage of not wasting time preparing antibodies again. We have them readily available just in time to save us from the dangerous disease. We can even compare our antibodies to the brave soldiers who protect our nation. When the invader tries stepping in, they soon form a squad around and destroys him. Wasn't that interesting to know how our body responds? Immunization or vaccination is one of the most important and cost-effective strategies for prevention of life-threatening diseases and disabilities, and is thus a basic need for all children. The Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, takes care of the immunization schedule for children in India. Most of you would have watched the advertisements regarding various vaccination programs in our country, like the recent ones on measles, rubella, MR vaccination campaign. All these advertisements are issued on public interest by the government for creating awareness. Now, let us spend some time to examine some of the most common vaccines and the diseases that they prevent us from. Measles rubella vaccine. It is a 2-in-1 vaccine which saves us from the two highly contagious diseases, measles and rubella, caused by viruses. It is generally administered to children around the age of 1 year with a second dose before starting school. MR vaccine has been successfully used by many developed countries to eliminate measles and rubella from their population. Although MR vaccine is not a part of National Immunization Schedule of India, it was recently introduced in several state immunization programs. Oral polio vaccine. Polio had plagued humans for thousands of years. In India, vaccination against polio started in the year 1978. The last reported cases of wild polio in India were in 2011. India was declared a polio-free country by the World Health Organization in the year 2014. Pulse polio is an immunization campaign established by the Government of India to eliminate polio by vaccinating all children under the age of 5 years against the polio virus. Oral polio vaccine is provided in 6 doses at various stages. BCG vaccine. It is a vaccine primarily used against tuberculosis, an airborne bacterial disease. In countries where tuberculosis is common, 1 dose is recommended in healthy babies as close to the time of birth as possible. The round scar mark on your upper arm we mentioned earlier is a result of this injection. The BCG vaccine was first used medically in 1921. It is on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines. Even today, tuberculosis is a cause for the death of about 1 million people every year, and so BCG vaccination should be given more importance. Hepatitis B vaccine. It is used to prevent hepatitis B. It is a disease that leads to inflammation of liver caused by viruses. The first dose of the vaccine is recommended within 24 hours of birth. 2 or 3 more doses are given after that. Hepatitis B vaccine was introduced in the Universal Immunization Program of India in the year 2007. People infected with hepatitis B might suffer loss of appetite, tiredness, muscle or stomach pains, diarrhea, vomiting, yellow skin or eyes, etc. People usually recover from hepatitis B after several weeks, but some become chronically infected. It is also a dangerous disease for which vaccination is preferable. Wasn't that interesting to find out why we all were vaccinated and how it has saved our lives against numerous life-threatening diseases? So, now let us end up our session saying thanks for vaccines and antibiotics for making our lives better. Thanks to you too for listening.